Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Emily, let's call off our engagement. I don't have romantic feelings for you. I believe you wouldn't want to spend the rest of your life forcing yourself into a marriage arranged by our parents either. When Jacob Carter pushed the door open and walked in, there was a sense of urgency and relief on his face that I had never seen before. In that moment, I was certain he had been reborn too. After all, in our previous life, he never came to break off the engagement. 3 days later, in that past life, during the final adjustment of the new heart-shaped lathe, he collapsed in the workshop from sudden cardiac arrest. I was the factory's doctor, and I pulled him back from the brink of death. After that, we got married as planned. But in the 20 years that followed, all I ever saw in his eyes was resentment and impatience. Emily, if I wasn't worried that people would accuse me of using you, I would have married Melissa a long time ago. You're the one who ruined my happiness with her. Then came the car accident. I was lying in a hospital bed, barely alive. He held Melissa in his arms as he signed the Do Not Resuscitate form without hesitation. She finally got what she deserved. All his previous talk, "Evelyn, this is my fault. You've suffered so much because of me," was nothing more than cruel irony. After years of bitterness and rejection, I finally let go. Then to my surprise, I woke up before the wedding. What I didn't expect was that Jacob had also come back in time. And this time he beat me to it. He was determined to take a path that had nothing to do with me. He probably believed that once he got rid of me, the burden holding him back, his life would be complete. Emily, I know this isn't fair to you. Jacob's voice pulled me back to the present. There was a hint of feigned regret in his tone, almost like he was doing me a favor. But my feelings for Melissa are real. She's the one I meant to be with in this life. I don't want to sacrifice myself anymore, and I don't want Melissa to suffer either. His words carried a hidden meaning. The confidence in his voice and the sense of control over his future nearly spilled out of him. If he was so sincere, why didn't he say anything in our previous life? Why wait until after we were already married to sneak around with her? I was filled with hate and mockery, but outwardly I only showed shock and heartbreak. With a shaky voice I asked, "After all these years we've been together, after everything between our families, you're really just going to walk away that easily? Is it all because of Melissa, the plant manager's daughter?" I stared hard at him, trying to catch even the slightest sign of hesitation on his face. I had to keep him from realizing that he wasn't the only one who had returned from the past. Jacob looked uncomfortable under my intense gaze. He sighed and said, "Emily, you can't force feelings. It's better to have one sharp pain than to suffer slowly. You should just accept this. Believe me, it's better for both of us." After going back and forth for a while, I finally gave up hope. My voice trembled. "Jacob, I know I can't make you stay. I only have one request. This engagement was something our parents arranged before they passed. Now that it's ending, could you at least come with me to their graves and explain it to them?" He hesitated briefly, but then thinking that this would be the final step in ending things, he nodded. "Okay, but I need to talk to Melissa first so she doesn't worry." He turned and left almost immediately, practically rushing out of the room. I walked over to the window and watched as he ran toward Melissa, who had been waiting in the courtyard. Under the bright sunlight, the two of them kissed passionately. "I knew your heart only had room for me," Melissa said, beaming. "Unlike someone who shamelessly clings to an old arranged marriage." "All right, don't talk about her," Jacob said. "Melissa, don't forget to go into the mountains in the next few days to find that heart shield herb I told you about. The one for protecting the heart." Standing by the window, I couldn't help but let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "Jacob Carter, you really think you've got it all figured out? You know your end will come in exactly 3 days, right when the heart-shaped lathe hits final testing. That moment is the most critical turning point in your career. There's no way you'd walk away from it. But what you don't know is that the key to saving your life was never those few leaves of medicinal herb. This time I want to see whether your so-called true love can work a miracle without me." Behind the factory on a small hill, 2 lonely graves stood side by side. "Mom, Dad." I knelt before the graves, my voice catching slightly. "Your daughter has failed you. I couldn't fulfill your final wish. Jacob and I are calling off the engagement. After you both passed away so early, I had a stable job at the factory and never had to worry about my child's education or future. But the loneliness that seeped into my bones, the overwhelming longing for a home, who could ever truly understand that? In my last life, even after I discovered Jacob had been cheating on me, I still didn't choose divorce. Beyond honoring your final words, wasn't it also because of my own desperate attachment? I thought as long as the marriage existed, and I kept showing him kindness, at the very least, I could hold on to the basic respect owed to someone with the title of wife. But I never expected that such deep gratitude would be returned as hatred. After pouring my heart into our marriage for 20 years, he didn't even offer me a way out. I should have seen through him long ago. Jacob Carter is a man cold to the core, heartless and disloyal. A wolf who bites the hand that feeds him, just like now, standing just a few steps behind me with his hands shoved in his pockets, cold and indifferent. His eyes fell on the two graves of the people who once saved his life, yet not a flicker of emotion appeared on his face. It was as if he were staring at two piles of dirt, nothing more. I paused, then turned my head toward him. Jacob, don't you have anything to say to my parents? My dad was the one who found you half dead in the snow. My mom was the one who begged her apprentice, Mr. Gao, to take you in and raise you. Jacob's gaze flickered with discomfort, but it quickly shifted to a self-righteous confidence, an arrogance that seemed to say, I've been reborn, and none of that matters anymore. Emily, why bring that up? Your parents, wherever they are, would want us both to be happy. I'm going to live a good life, and I'll use my success to honor their memory. That's the best way to repay them. I'll take care of you just like they would have wanted. But Emily, taking care of you doesn't have to mean marrying you. I can look out for you like a brother. That's enough. I stood up, brushing the dust from my knees. Go ahead. I'd like a moment alone to talk to my parents. Watching him walk away in a hurry, I crouched down again and gently placed a bunch of wild chrysanthemums in front of the graves. Mom, Dad, I know you'd want me to be happy. You wouldn't want me to spend my life forcing myself to be with a cold man like him, right? The mountain breeze swept by, rustling the pine trees. It felt like they were responding to me, or maybe gently wiping away the tears I stubbornly tried to hold back. I bowed deeply 3 times and made a solemn vow. Please rest assured, in this life, Emily Lynn will live for myself. And those who hurt me, I will make them pay one by one. On my way back from the cemetery, I passed the factory's bulletin board, the one place where gossip always flew the fastest. And just as expected, Melissa Shao, the plant manager's daughter, was surrounded by a crowd of young women basking in their attention like a proud peacock. You girls don't even know, Melissa said, her voice sharp and gloating. Jacob dumped his fiancée for me. He told me he was sick of Emily Lynn a long time ago. If it weren't for her being pitiful after losing her parents, he would have left her years ago. Now he's finally free to go after his own happiness. Laughter and murmurs rippled through the crowd, with several girls commenting in admiration on Jacob's courage to pursue true love. In this new life, I had no intention of tolerating humiliation anymore. I opened my mouth to respond, but someone beat me to it. Mr. Gao burst through the crowd livid. Have you no shame? He snapped. He shoved aside the onlookers, his face dark with anger as he glared at Melissa. That foolish boy Jacob may have lost his mind. But I haven't. Even if I'm not lucky enough to have Emily as a daughter-in-law, I sure as hell won't accept someone like you in my family. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the trembling in Mr. Gao's back as he spoke. My eyes burned. In the last life after Jacob let me die, it might have been only this old man, already slipping into dementia, who stubbornly remembered me and shed a few cloudy tears for me. He always said I was the daughter he watched grow up with his own eyes. Because of him, Jacob never dared to completely mistreat me in public. The crowd of women gradually scattered. Melissa bit her lip and stomped her foot before running off. Mr. Gao avoided looking at me and turned as if to leave too. I was just about to follow when I was stopped by a co-worker, James Shun. Emily, Dr. Lin. His voice was low, tinged with nervousness. There's something I need to talk to you about. It's about Jacob Carter and the new lathe system. Dr. Lin. James Shun said, his expression serious. I've kept this inside for a long time. The control system that Jacob's claiming credit for. The one being used in the new heart-shaped lathe. It's almost identical to the notes my mentor left behind. James raised his voice slightly in urgency, then quickly lowered it again. Before he died, my mentor said the algorithm still had flaws. It needed repeated testing and validation. But Jacob just took it and used it outright. He even submitted it under his own name. A chill swept through me. I remembered that in my past life, James had tried to report something to the deputy factory director, but his effort vanished like a stone thrown into the sea. Instead, he ended up being marginalized and pushed aside. I never imagined this was what he had tried to expose. So Jacob Carter's shining reputation as a brilliant engineer was actually built on unfinished work that belonged to someone else. I paused for a moment, then said calmly, "James, slide an anonymous letter into the technical department chief's mailbox." The new lathe project was the factory director's top priority. Jacob was his golden boy. The deputy director, who didn't get along with the director, wouldn't have dared to interfere. But I knew something others didn't. This new technical chief was known for his integrity, and his distant relative was about to be appointed director of the Provincial Department of Mechanical Engineering. After I made sure the letter had been sent, I just so happened to walk past the break area near the workshop where the sounds of a heated argument erupted. "You ungrateful brat." Mr. Gao was pointing angrily at Jacob's nose. "Tell me, what about Emily isn't good enough for you? A man needs to have a conscience." Jacob stood beside the lathe, his face dark, yet still wore that arrogant expression he'd carried since his rebirth. "Dad, please don't make a scene at the factory. I know exactly where my future is headed. I don't need anyone else to tell me what to do. I won't repeat my past mistakes." "What mistakes?" Mr. Gao's beard trembled with fury. "I should have let you freeze to death in that snow the day your parents left you behind. Taking you in, raising you. That was my biggest mistake." Melissa Xiao clung sweetly to Jacob's arm. "Mr. Gao, that's really harsh. Jacob's just following his heart and going after true happiness. You should be supporting him." "Get out of here," Mr. Gao shouted, grabbing a wrench and slamming it onto the toolbox with a loud clang. "Jacob, if you really dare to marry her, then don't call me your father. I, Martin Gao, don't have a son as disloyal and heartless as you." Several workers peered in from outside, whispering among themselves. It was obvious that word had already spread throughout the factory. Jacob had dumped me. I stepped forward quickly, only to be pulled protectively behind Mr. Gao. "Emily, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice low with shame. Suddenly, Jacob pointed at me, his voice laced with anger. "Is this your doing again, Emily? Are you scheming behind my back? I'm warning you. My life is mine to control." Mr. Gao stood even more firmly in front of me, shielding me from Jacob as the machines in the workshop hummed loudly. "You scum," he spat. "You do something shameful and then have the nerve to blame her for it." Jacob's gaze stayed fixed on me, cold, impatient, and disturbingly relieved. Yes, maybe he was remembering how suffocated he'd felt in our last life, being forced to marry me. Now that he was free, what did my reputation matter to him? Once he achieved success, who would dare question him? As for Mr. Gao, the man who raised him, all he'd ever done was hold him accountable and tie him to me. To Jacob, he was useless now. Melissa tugged on his sleeve. "Jacob, let's go talk to my father. Don't waste time with people who don't matter." As the two of them walked away without a second glance, Mr. Gao collapsed onto the bench in defeat. He covered his face with his rough, calloused hands. "Emily, I failed as a father. A man like him is bound to face retribution one day." Yes, and that retribution was coming soon. The only pity was Mr. Gao would be leaving on a business trip starting tomorrow, and he wouldn't get to witness his prophecy come true. 3 days passed quietly, filled with silent pressure and patient waiting. Finally, the day of the heart-shaped lathe's official testing arrived. Crowds gathered. The new machine gleamed coldly under the sunlight. Jacob Carter stood tall at the front in a crisp suit, confidently presenting to the audience with a smug, victorious smile on his face. "This entire system was independently developed by me," Jacob Carter announced confidently. "It features innovative." Before he could finish, Melissa Xiao, dressed in a bright red dress like some fluttering butterfly, weaved her way among the group of senior officials. The moment she spotted me, she raised her voice deliberately. Jacob is the youngest senior engineer here today, and a rising star in the entire state's mechanical engineering sector. Some people should finally understand the difference between brilliance and mud. I lowered my head to double-check the emergency medical kit, pretending not to hear a thing. The test began. The roar of the machinery filled the air, and each indicator light blinked green one after another. Jacob's operation was smooth and fluid, and the system ran flawlessly. He even glanced smugly in my direction, his eyes filled with contempt. "It's a success," someone shouted. The test of the new lathe system was a complete success. As the final data stabilized on the display, thunderous applause and cheers erupted throughout the site. But just as Jacob gasped in this peak moment of attention, a sharp change broke the atmosphere. Jacob let out a short gasp. His confident smile froze instantly, replaced by a look of pure terror. Like a puppet with its strings cut, his body went limp and crumpled to the ground. "Jacob!" Melissa shrieked. Her scream, oddly rehearsed, rang through the air. She rushed toward him almost before he hit the floor, yanking a bundle of dried herbs from her purse and trying to shove them into his clenched mouth. "Jacob, these are the heart shield herbs, the ones I found for you. Hurry, take them. You'll be okay. Just eat them." The officials turned pale, their panic obvious. Some shouted in confusion. The workers stood frozen, unsure what to do, forming a circle but offering no real help. "Call an ambulance now." Director Zhao's voice trembled with fear. "Where's Dr. Lin? Where's Emily Lin? Get her here now." In the middle of the chaos, someone finally remembered me. The Factos medical officer. I sneered internally. Now the real show begins. I pushed through the frantic crowd and stepped forward briskly, putting on a perfectly timed expression of urgency and professional concern. "Miss Zhao," I said clearly, "please step aside. The patient is showing signs of cardiac arrest. He needs immediate emergency care." The moment Jacob saw me, panic and resentment flared in his eyes. Just as he was about to scream something, I cut him off without giving him the chance. "Miss Zhao," I said firmly, my tone leaving no room for debate. "You need to calm down immediately. I'm a trained medical professional. If you truly care about Jacob Carter, then please cooperate with the emergency procedures and stop interfering. Even if your herbs work, they take time to be effective. Right now, the top priority is to begin CPR." Everything I said was exactly what a responsible and professional doctor should say. Yet to Melissa, I must have seemed like an intruder in her territory. Her voice rose sharply, defensive and hostile, like a mother animal protecting her nest. "Get away from him," she shouted. "Jacob told me the heart shield herbs I brought would save him. He's got everything under control." She shielded Jacob's body with her own and shoved harder, almost violently, trying to force the brittle herbs into his lifeless mouth. "What are you really up to, Emily Lin?" she hissed, trying to save Jacob again. "Just so you can claim he owes you something. Stick to him like before, huh? Well, I'm telling you now, not this time. Jacob is mine. Only I can save him." A subtle ripple of murmurs stirred among the crowd. The looks people gave Melissa had shifted. Confusion, concern, and even a flicker of schadenfreude. Even Director Zhao's brow furrowed deeply, a flicker of embarrassment flashing across his face. Feeling completely blocked, I reluctantly paused my actions. I turned toward Director Zhao with a look of both regret and professional courtesy. "Director Zhao," I said carefully. "As you can see, the patient's family is highly emotional and completely uncooperative with medical procedures. I'm afraid that if I let the sentence hang unfinished, it will be deliberately left open-ended, full of unsaid consequences and room for the worst to be imagined." Director Zhao opened his mouth as if to say something, but in the end he simply let out a long, heavy sigh. He turned to Melissa and said, "Melissa, let Dr. Lin take a look. She's the professional here. We don't need the heart shield herbs. Jacob will be fine." But Melissa continued sobbing stubbornly. She finally pried open Jacob's tightly clenched jaw and shoved several brittle herb leaves inside, mixing them with his tears. The people around looked on, their expressions shifting between confusion and discomfort at Melissa's near-hysterical attempt to save him. Finally, someone couldn't help but whisper. That girl always seemed sharp. What's gotten into her now? She said Jacob told her the herbs would save him. Someone else muttered. What nonsense. Yeah, look at him. He's already like this. What are a few dried leaves supposed to do? She must be panicking. It's pitiful, really. But stopping Dr. Lin from helping? That's crossing the line. I stood to the side, silently watching it all unfold. In our previous life, Jacob collapsed just the same. During those critical 4 minutes, I had immediately begun emergency procedures. With precise technique and second-by-second timing, I had dragged him back from death's door. This time, let him see for himself. Let him experience whether his so-called true love and those miracle herbs she went to such lengths to find can actually save him. And so minute by minute, time slipped away. Finally, the sound of ambulance sirens pierced the suffocating tension in the workshop, growing louder and closer. But just when everyone thought Jacob was probably finished, a shocking wave swept through the factory. Jacob Carter had miraculously recovered. I continued working in the infirmary as usual, but all around me were the stunned voices of coworkers gossiping nonstop. Did you hear? Not only did Jacob wake up, he's walking around like nothing ever happened. No way. I thought they said even if he survived, he'd be paralyzed. It's true. Melissa's been at the hospital every day caring for him, brewing all kinds of herbal decoctions, and feeding them to him. Wow. Now that's devotion. Guess we were wrong to say those herbs were useless. As I listened to the sudden shift in public opinion, a chill settled deep in my chest. Melissa Xiao, a girl who probably couldn't tell the difference between salt and sugar. What did she know about pharmacology? Unless Jacob had told her. In the previous life, I had scoured every medical journal to help him recover from that incident. I had tested and refined precious formulas to restore his health. And he must have memorized those formulas behind my back. This time he had prepared his own way out. Yet let Melissa take full credit for it. She was now his so-called savior. And what followed was Jacob's even more triumphant rise. Not only did he recover miraculously, but he also claimed that his brush with death had inspired a breakthrough. He solved several key technical problems in the field, shaking the entire industry. Overnight, he became the brightest star in the state's mechanical engineering scene. Admired by investors, showered with praise, his career soaring. At the peak of it all, he and Melissa announced their engagement in the most high-profile way. The wedding was set for an auspicious date. Just 2 weeks later, I received one of those fancy gold-embossed invitations, too. Personally delivered to the infirmary by Melissa herself. She wore the latest designer dress, her face glowing with victory. Emily Lin, she said sweetly. Jacob insisted you be invited. He said you and Mr. Gao are the only family he has left. And since Mr. Gao's out of town for work, you as his dear sister, absolutely must come witness his happiness. I smiled faintly and took the invitation from her hand. Of course I'll be there. I'll congratulate you in person. On the day of the wedding, the largest hall in the entire factory complex was decorated in gold and luxury. Every prominent figure from the industry was there. Jacob stood on stage delivering a heartfelt speech that lasted over half an hour. Every word was steeped in emotion, gratitude for surviving his ordeal, and grand hopes for the future. He painted Melissa as the goddess who had pulled him back from the brink. The heart-shield herbs became some legendary elixir, and he portrayed himself as a hero, reborn through love and miracles. Melissa stayed close by his side the entire time, clinging to his arm like a docile bird. Her face wore a radiant, bashful smile. She dabbed at her eyes with a dainty embroidered handkerchief as if overwhelmed by emotion. She played the role of the devoted, gentle wife-to-be to perfection. Several sentimental women in the audience even began to cry. I sat quietly in the farthest, most inconspicuous corner of the banquet hall. A faint smirk of mockery tugged at the corner of my lips. Jacob Carter, did you really think that with the half-baked formula you stole from me in the last life, you could sit back and enjoy your glory? That you could rebuild your so-called success without worry? Those so-called miracle herbs you put your faith in hide a dangerous toxicity. Without the proprietary balancing methods my family passed down, sure they work fast at first, but they don't last. And once they react with certain triggers, Well, let's just say I have a very special wedding gift for you today. As the ceremony neared its end, Jacob gazed lovingly at Melissa Xiao. He raised his glass to toast her, ready to elevate this moment of triumph to its peak. He drank, smiling like a man at the very top of the world. But the second the wine slid down his throat, that smile froze on his face. Then his expression turned deathly pale. The glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the ground, crimson wine splashing in all directions. Jacob, what's wrong? Melissa's happy expression hadn't even faded before she gasped in fear. Caught off guard by his sudden lurch, Jacob clutched his abdomen and let out a muffled groan of pain. His legs trembled uncontrollably, and under the stunned gaze of the entire wedding hall, a wet stain spread rapidly across the front of his expensive light-colored pants. He had lost control of his bladder in public. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed heavily to the floor, unconscious. The room went dead silent. Then came the tidal wave of gasps, shrieks, and whispers of disbelief. What the hell happened? Wasn't he supposed to be fully recovered? He looked totally fine just a second ago. The entire wedding descended into chaos. At the hospital, Jacob's condition deteriorated quickly. One moment he was burning with fever, the next his entire body convulsed. The side effects that had been suppressed by those so-called herbal remedies now surged like a flood, overwhelming his system. Director Jiao, terrified both for his daughter and his political future, spared no expense. He flew in several top medical experts from the capital for an emergency consultation. Days later, the panel of experts gave their final diagnosis. The patient had consumed a combination of highly potent and conflicting herbs. On the surface, they had forced a temporary recovery, but in reality, his body had been severely overdrawn. His nervous system had suffered irreversible damage. One elderly specialist adjusted his glasses and said gravely, "At this point, all we can do is stabilize him. A full recovery is nearly impossible." I heard the news while peacefully trimming the jasmine on my windowsill. Jacob Carter, that was my wedding gift to you. That wine you drank, it was just a nourishing tonic. Who could have known it would interact so badly with the herbs you'd already taken? You didn't die back then. So now live with every kind of suffering. I brought the jasmine flower to my nose, inhaling its delicate fragrance. A satisfied smile spread across my lips. Jacob's body was completely ruined. Though Director Jiao pulled strings to help him keep his position, who would entrust real responsibility to a crippled engineer with an unstable mental state? Yes, the lathe project and the key technologies he had helped break through had brought benefits to the factory and earned him some capital. If he had been willing to settle for a comfortable, mediocre life, retire quietly, live in luxury, never want for food or money, it might have been enough. But this was Jacob Carter. He came into this life with the memories of his past. He was determined to cast me off, marry his shining ideal, and rise to the pinnacle of success. There was no way he could accept becoming a man who needed care, who was whispered about behind his back, who had been broken. That kind of downfall, it was worse than death. I could almost picture him now lying in his hospital bed day and night, gnawed by bitterness and despair. And this was far from over. The anonymous letter James Shun had slipped into the technical chief's mailbox. It was time for it to do its work. The technical director lived up to his reputation, sharp, fearless, and thorough. After nearly 2 months of quiet investigation, he ignored the mounting pressure and struck hard, unleashing the scandal that had long been buried behind the lathe project. The evidence was undeniable. Jacob Carter's so-called independent development and technical breakthroughs were almost entirely built on the unfinished research of James Shun's late mentor. But what shocked everyone even more was this. The investigation didn't just uncover plagiarism. It also revealed serious safety hazards within the new lathe project. James' mentor had clearly annotated multiple design flaws and unverified risk points in his original manuscripts. But Jacob, unable to resolve the issues and eager to claim credit, had simply copied everything as is. In our previous life, these hidden dangers never surfaced before the new lathe project was retired. They showed up as occasional malfunctions, small issues that Jacob managed to gloss over with sweet talk. Back then, factory safety audits weren't nearly as strict as they are now, so no one dug deeper. But under the technical director's thorough reinvestigation, and with the provincial department's intervention, those flaws, which could have easily led to major accidents or even fatalities, were fully exposed. The news caused a massive stir, drawing the attention of both city and provincial authorities. The man, once hailed as a genius prodigy, was instantly dragged from his pedestal, publicly condemned as a thief and a danger to workplace safety. The wedding spectacle, his miraculous recovery, and his string of brilliant achievements, all of it became nothing but damning irony and evidence of his deceit. Director Xiao tried desperately to salvage the situation, but the province was taking it seriously. They ordered an immediate suspension and full review of the entire lathe program along with a factory-wide safety overhaul. Jacob was suspended and put under investigation. All the honors he had once flaunted vanished overnight. His private corner office, once a symbol of his prestige, was sealed with an official notice. Director Jiao himself was also penalized for poor oversight and shielding misconduct. He was suspended from duty pending internal review, with her father and husband both toppled. Melissa Zhao's life at the factory became unbearable. The easy desk job she once enjoyed was replaced with grueling manual tasks. No matter where she went, people whispered behind her back, calling her a man-stealing walking disaster, a fraud peddler who nearly killed someone. I kept working in the infirmary calmly, as if nothing had changed. But every now and then, I'd overhear coworkers talking in hushed tones about the latest fall from grace. Their voices were full of contempt and relief. Mr. Gao came to visit me after returning from his business trip. He didn't say much, just patted me on the shoulder. "Emily," he said, "a woman blessed with good fortune should never marry a man who isn't. What happened to him? That's karma. Now go live your life well." But one day, Jacob showed up at the infirmary. I was sorting through patient files when he appeared at the doorway. His clothes were disheveled, hair a mess, eyes red and hollow with a look of desperation and regret. "Emily," his voice was almost pleading. "I know I was wrong. Everything was my fault. I shouldn't have believed Melissa. Please, can you help me again? I know you're gifted. You have a way to cure me, right?" He tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away in disgust. "Jacob Carter," I said coldly, "there's nothing between us anymore. If you're sick, go to the experts in the capital. This is just a factory infirmary. I don't treat complicated conditions here." "No, Emily, please." His voice grew desperate. "I know you're still mad at me, and you have every right to be. But if you're willing to save me, I'll do anything you ask. I'll divorce Melissa. We can get back together, okay? I'll treat you right this time." "Back together?" I almost laughed at how shameless he was. "Jacob, have you completely lost your mind?" I cut him off sharply. "Do I look like I collect garbage? Just seeing you in this state makes me feel nauseous." His body trembled from the blow of my words. "I was reborn," he said, choking out the confession. "I came back with memories. I thought I could fix the one regret I had in my last life, that I could climb even higher. I knew something would happen in 3 days. That's why I told her to find the heart shield herbs. I even prepared recovery formulas. I thought I had it all under control." He raised his head, bloodshot eyes locking onto mine, twisted in pain and disbelief. "In the last life, nothing happened to me. It was you. You were always the one saving me. And now it's not too late, right? As long as I come back to you now, you'd still save me, wouldn't you?" "What are you talking about?" I snapped. "If you've gone insane, go check into a psychiatric hospital. But right now, get out." I pointed toward the door, my tone firm and final. "Don't ever show up in front of me again. If you do, I'll call security. Whether you live or die, it has nothing to do with me anymore, Jacob Carter." He was completely shattered by my cold eyes and decisive words. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but in the end he just stumbled away, defeated, watching his broken figure disappear. I felt not a trace of sympathy. He brought it all upon himself. What goes around comes around. No one escapes justice forever. Once I'd sent away that cursed man, peace returned to my life. With the knowledge and experience I'd built up over 2 lifetimes, I became more and more proficient in my role at the infirmary. Whether it was minor headaches or emergency cases, I handled them with calm precision and effective treatment. One after another, patients recovered under my care. Soon, the workers began affectionately calling me Dr. Lin, the miracle worker. I also organized the medical notes and manuscripts my father had left behind and, combining them with modern medical research, wrote several articles that were later published in professional journals. They generated quite a bit of buzz. The factory leaders began taking me more seriously and promoted me ahead of schedule to head of the infirmary. As for James Shen, unlike in the previous life where he was pushed to the margins, this time he gained steady ground. He became a key contributor in several important projects and was rightfully regarded as a core technician. Because of everything we'd been through together, a quiet bond of trust and closeness had formed between us. He wasn't slick-tongued like Jacob, nor was he overly ambitious. James was quiet and thoughtful. On the nights I worked late, he would silently bring me hot meals. When I looked visibly tired from long hours, he would awkwardly try to cheer me up with a joke he'd read in the newspaper. In him, I found a warmth and steadiness I hadn't felt in a long time. The heart that had been frozen from my past life's wounds slowly began to thaw. A year later, on a sunny afternoon, James blushed as he handed me a small bouquet of wildflowers he'd picked from the mountains. With nervous eyes he asked, "Emily, would you like to be with me?" I looked into his honest, hopeful eyes and smiled as I nodded. We didn't have a grand wedding, just a simple meal with Mr. Gao and a few close colleagues and friends, but my heart had never felt more content and grounded. Years later, I heard about Jacob's final fate. After being dismissed from the factory, his health kept deteriorating. Melissa Xiao couldn't stand the sight of the wreck he had become and divorced him when he hit rock bottom. Not long after, a minor cold took him, and he died alone in a rundown little house. A few years after that, a newly transferred colleague happened to mention Melissa's situation. After the divorce, her reputation was ruined. She quit the factory and married into a distant province, but she never changed her spoiled, temperamental ways, and all it earned her was verbal and physical abuse from her second husband. Her life grew miserable and chaotic. Eventually, she started acting delusional, telling anyone who would listen that she wanted to go back to her previous life, to the days when she was the factory director's daughter, the bright and shining star. In the end, she took her own life with a shard of broken glass. I was strolling through the park with James and our 1-year-old son when I heard the news. Melissa, had she been reborn too? Maybe. But so what? Everything from our past, every grudge, every wrong had disappeared along with Jacob's death. It was all over now. The warm sunlight wrapped around us. Our son giggled in James' arms. He reached out with one hand to gently smooth down the hair the breeze had blown across my face. In this life, I never fell for a heartless wolf again. I was finally living the quiet, happy life I deserved.